What's up, guys? So, I know it's been a while I was on vacation, but today's video is gonna be the narrative that DFINITY sucks at marketing. And many people might think that, well, this is something that people within the ICP ecosystem say, and that this is the reason that ICP isn't well known about. But I have my own opinions about that, and that's what this video is gonna be. Because I think DFINITY is doing the best it possibly can do with the situation they're given. Because not everything is black and white, and not everything can just do the same marketing tactic. And I would even argue the thing that's amazing about ICP is the majority of it is on chain. But not only is the majority of it on chain, the way the architecture was built, it's the only one that's building for most things to be on chain. It's the only one. Every other blockchain has multiple issues that arise when it tries to do the same. So I think for DFINITY, the best thing they can do is make the technology as amazing as possible, so good that it's undeniable, and that instead of marketing in terms of ads, they market in terms of utility and user friendliness, so that when a person goes on the ICP ecosystem compared to other ecosystems like Ethereum, it's much easier to navigate and kind of just plug in and play. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to have this whole technical education just to run a blockchain or use a blockchain's services, right? And I'm going to get into that later on what I mean by that. But first, we have to look at the overall landscape, right? So you got to ask yourself, if you made your own crypto, right, how would you market in this environment when almost every crypto is saying the same thing, right? It might be that they're the fastest, which doesn't mean anything on its own, right? Like I said in a previous video, I'm pretty sure, just because something is fast doesn't mean it's going to have utility automatically. Would you be more about security? Would you be more about privacy, right? That's the whole point of all these cryptos arising, trying to be a solution. But here's the thing, they're solutions for very specific things. And I would argue ICP is a solution for a broad topic of things. So for example, Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin, Caspa, XRP, XLM, right? Any coin that's really trying to be, well, I wouldn't say XRP or XLM because they may have, I want to see how it plays out, but I can be confident with Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin wants to supposedly be something that's going to replace currency, right? Which is ironic to me because most people, I'm not saying all, right? But if you're not a maxi in Bitcoin and you're just someone buying it because you think it's going to go up, chances are you're just buying it to sell it for cash later. So it's just seen as an investment more than an actual currency, right? How many people actually use Bitcoin? It kind of defeats the purpose because it's like, well, why would I want to use this Bitcoin now if it's going to be more valuable in the future, right? So it's kind of like an own argument within itself, right? And that depends on the person. But it does get utility on things like the deep web, right? When you actually need the privacy. But then there's also stuff like Monero, right? Which they claim it's more private than Bitcoin, more decentralized, right? Same with Caspa. Caspa says it's a better Bitcoin in every way. It's like an upgraded Bitcoin. So, how do you market in this environment of crypto, right? And you also got to think about marketing in other fields because not all marketing is the same, right? DFINITY can't just say, oh, let's just throw out a product and say, look, we're fully on chain. Everybody's saying they're fully on chain. All these other cryptos are saying they're fully on chain, right? Or they don't say fully, but they say we're on chain gaming, on chain DeFi, right? So think about the military. Marketing in the military is pretty simple, right? If you're a arms dealer, whatever is going to be the most efficient tool for the job will easily get adopted, especially technology, right? Whichever country has the best technology is going to win. Now, in my personal opinion, I think, you know, it's more about money laundering in a way. I do believe extremely powerful technology exists within the military, but for it to be used, I don't know. I don't want to get down my conspiracy theories, but for video games, right? You have different marketing. Whatever you can make, you can give all the advertisements in the world, guys. I mean, look at Amazon. And Amazon is arguably one of the largest, I mean, it is one of the largest companies in the world. They released a game called New World, and it flopped because the game wasn't fun. So you can do all the marketing in the world. If the product sucks, no one's going to play it, right? So you got to ask yourself what's the point of marketing? Now most people hate DFINITY's marketing because they think that's the reason the price is low. And I just think that's another reason to try and justify why it's low, but I think it's market manipulation, right? Now I'm not going to say that if people actually knew the differences, right, and they actually understood it and they didn't have any bag bias, it's obvious, right? Remove even from ourselves, right? Let's remove all bias. And I'm going to get into that in a later slide and just solely go over what's technically capable, right? In terms of how it's built. Not the use case, but what is technically possible, right? Because for most things, the use case will be currency, right? That's what most people will use these coins for. Now, for example, with Solana, right? You'll use Solana mainly because you just want to buy a Solana NFT. Same with Ethereum. You'll use Ethereum to use it on its ecosystem, right? To buy something. So that's what most people use these coins for, right? I would argue the average person in Ethereum isn't buying all that Ethereum to become a staking provider or a node provider one day, right? Which is still a use case, right? That's something you can do when you buy enough Ethereum. But so I just wanted to make it clear, I'm going to be going over everything that's technically possible with these coins on their own compared to ICP. So I was just looking up, what makes a crypto valuable. And as you can see here, security, right? Scalability, efficiency, speed, right? These are what most people consider. And even down here, you have utility and counterfeitability, right? Counterfeitability, right? Scarcity, all of this stuff. But I would argue if a blockchain is only being the settlement layer, right? Like literally just a transaction layer, because that's what these really run. Like when I think about a blockchain, I'm thinking, what is the blockchain actually running? What is the blockchain's part in the overall technology? Because the internet today, guys, is not just a random thing, right? It's a bunch of technologies working together to create a product. And that's how blockchain works as well, which is my point actually, which is why this is the marketing of DFINITY, right? Is that they're different in every single way possible, literally. Well, maybe not every single way, right? Because there's still a crypto part, but in terms of what's technically capable, like I said, even if it's not utilized the most, I just want to go over what's technically capable, like as a literal fact, right? So that's the point of this. And it's in a boat of its own. It's literally it's the only third generation blockchain out there. That's what I would argue. And there's a slide for that that I have, but I'll go into that later. So I think ICP fits every single one, right? E- Especially cost efficiency. You see this? They have reverse gas. They invented reverse gas fees. No other cryptos had that until recently. I think a couple it might be Sui or Near Protocol. I forget which one. Op, has reverse gas now, but ICP was the first to do it. And I'll put up a picture showing, which recently came out with reverse gas and showing that ICP had it first, but which I'm not, going to be like, oh, we're first, we're first. I'm just saying that ICP is innovative. It's undeniable, right? So this is just another thing about marketing, right? Like when you have stuff like this, guys, like Pepe coin number 30 and Trump coin number 54 in the top 100, right? $1.8 billion market cap for Trump coin, $4.5 billion market cap for a frog coin, right? You got to think about like what what do you how is your marketing so bad you can't be above a frog that has no utility? But see, it's not just ICP. Even Caspa, like I know there's people that are fans of Caspa. I know there's people that are fans of BitTensor Tau, right? People that are fans of Algorand, HBAR, Near Protocol, all this stuff. Guess what? A frog's above you. What marketing does Pepe Coin do? I think this market, a large portion of it, I do think is a psyop, and a lot of things don't make sense right now. The utility and the value. I'm not going to try to get too conspiratorial, but I think a lot of this is by design to just make this look like a shitcoin market and hide the utility in plain sight. And with artificial superintelligence, this is literally three networks coming together. I think it's Ocean AI or Ocean Protocol, Singularity.net or SingularityNet, and it might be Fetch AI. I'm not 100% sure, but I'll put the pictures up, and it's like all of these came together for an AI kind of alliance, right? To make an AI product. And ICP still has more capabilities with AI than even they do. And it's fully reliant on itself with all of that. Because ICP is building what they would have to market for, people are never going to listen to as long as it looks like this, right? So that's what I mean. As long as they make the product good and seamless for the average Joe, that's what's going to adopt it. That's what's going to make them believe, wow, this is just everything is so much easier to do on ICP and more seamless than it is on any other blockchain because no other blockchain relies fully on itself for its UI like ICP does. It's just not, it's a fact, right? Which is what I'm going to get into. And that comes to this, right? You can look at every coin here, guys. Now, not all coins are the same, obviously. They all have different use cases. Like Chainlink is a decentralized Oracle provider, right? So if its front end didn't exist anymore and there was really, well, front end in the traditional sense, the average Joe sense in terms of like something to connect in a easy UI way, right? If that got lost on Chainlink, that's not the biggest deal because it's not an ecosystem like Ethereum that's gonna actually be a marketplace for all these NFTs and things, right? But if Ethereum lost that kind of UI front end dApp kind of thing that the majority, like 99% of the Ethereum ecosystem interacts with, all of that falls apart. DeFi falls apart on Ethereum. The whole ecosystem, right? All the degen culture, and that's for all of this, right? Now, like I said, certain things like certain coins are going to be less affected by that because of just the way it's built. Like for example, right, Monero and Bitcoin, they really do just want to be currencies, right? They have a very specific use case. And it's like, okay, if you're technically savvy enough, and most people are in Monero at least, right? They run their own nodes most of the time. People are very privacy based on Monero, it, which is why it's actually hard to buy, right? And the harder it is to buy, the less people are going to be, even if it's a great privacy coin, people aren't going to be as quick to buy it because of how many obstacles you have to go through, right? Which is my point with all of this. If all of these coins just relied on their own infrastructure and no other dependencies at all, you would literally have to connect directly to the blockchain. And the average person to interact with that network, well, some of these networks actually even use the whole point of connecting to the blockchain, right? Like if you want to buy an Ethereum NFT, but Ethereum itself can't actually host the NFT. That's literally how it is today. I think there's very few, like it's possible, right? Like you can host an NFT on Ethereum, but it's not scalable. And that's exactly why I'm saying DFINITY's marketing is amazing because they can scale. Everything's going to scale. And as things scale on, and if this gets a higher price, and I have slides about this actually. I think it's on the next slide. So this is what is possible being fully reliant on itself, right? So talking about Ethereum, to go back to what I was just saying. If the price is higher, guys, right? Like let's say Ethereum gets to $10,000 per Ethereum. Now, to even store an NFT on chain, now it's more expensive to do so. So it literally defeats itself. So the more valuable it becomes as a coin, the more it has to rely on something else to host its actual, if you want to host anything like fully on the chain that's a picture, or anything that takes up any decent amount of space. And that's for all of these, right? And I didn't put it here for Bitcoin because Bitcoin in itself can't even store pictures, any large data at all. It's going to be very basic NFTs, right? Maybe documentation or like hashes or something. And security proof of concepts, this applies ICP has this, right? So the top part here, guys, is what is possible with these things that if it's fully reliant on itself and it lost all AWS and everything, right? So by default, guys, every blockchain should have timestamps, right? It's the whole point of the blockchain to be auditable, to know exactly when something was done. They're all going to have security proof of concepts, right? Now, do most people use a blockchain for security proof of concept? No, not really. Like most people I see that use a blockchain are doing it for DeFi. So, for example, a security proof of concept would be, oh, this person owns this thing. Let's make a private key on the blockchain that only he has. And if he has it, that's going to verify it's him. So it adds a layer of security, right? Now, that's not the only example, but that's just, a general example of what I mean by a security proof of concept, right? Like you can have security just using the blockchain itself. But most people don't do that on average, right? So I'm talking about, what really attracts the average person to all of this. And I'm arguing that everything that attracts all these people is literally done off chain, right? These kind of just add the uh the next these kind of just add a more secure payment system. That's how I see it with smart contracts, right? But you could even argue, guys, that if you lose any of this, you may rather lose your money in a bank than you would in this, because if you lose your money on DeFi, you're screwed, right? You have to rely fully on the person that stole it or hacked it or wherever you sent it gives it back to the address. If that happens in the fiat world, the bank actually will repay you if you got fraud. Most of the time, at least, right? That doesn't scale to like millions of dollars, but in terms of the average person, they would. So, past all these bullet points, right? This is the main point right here. This is the real big thing. They have no user interface at all, and they don't have any oracles. They need to rely on Oracle, which is the whole entire job of Chainlink. That's like literally this whole company's main job, or the whole network's main job, which is what I was saying earlier, like 5 minutes ago, about how, okay, if all of these lost their UI and they all depended on themselves, well, Chainlink doesn't really have an ecosystem where people are like, like you could argue people that are pro Chainlink, like, no, we love the NFTs and all that, but chances are, right, you know that's not like your main use case. That's not the main selling point of Chainlink like it is for Ethereum, right? Ethereum has this degen culture, Solana has this degen culture. People love the DeFi and the memes, you know what I mean? Chainlink's a little more, I don't want to be condescending in any way, but Chainlink is more, I'm not going to say professional, right? But they just have different use cases, right? They have different communities. So once this happens, guys, if there's, because that's the thing, Chainlink, the whole purpose is to sell to these people like, yeah, dude, we'll provide your, these will be a decentralized oracle for you, right? We can be an oracle for you guys. We can get off-chain data, put it on-chain, right? But this is the whole point right here. What's fully reliant on itself? They're not oracles, right? So once they lose this, guys, crypto becomes a niche. Now, crypto is already a niche. Crypto by design is already a niche. But imagine if you lost all the UI. And a good way to think of this in a everyday scenario is, imagine if you had to navigate every single website on the internet and there was no icons, right? So let's say you went on YouTube and you didn't have any, it was as fully reliant on itself as possible, right? Just YouTube and its server and nothing else, right? Now, this isn't gonna be 100% technically accurate, but I just want to give you an example, kind of like an equivalent of what it would be like if these people lost all their dependencies. So imagine not having any DNS, right? Which is domain name system, which is a protocol that lets you type in youtube.com instead of its IP address. Imagine if you had to go navigate the internet with just using IP addresses, and then you go on youtube.com and every single thumbnail isn't even there, right? It's at most it's just a title, and you can't even watch the video because YouTube can't store it, right? Now, obviously, YouTube can store that, so it's not the best example, but the point I'm making is these chains cannot, anything with large data, anything with large data, they have to rely on a dependency, which is the way they were built, right? This is the security, this is the ledger layer. That's it. It's a secure ledger that's connected to a DApp. But everything everybody interacts with 99% of the time, all the APIs and everything, that's hosted on the front end, not by any of these. It just connects to them. Now compare that to ICP, right? And I made this picture a while ago, but it's a Web3 hierarchy. And this is just the truth. None of these are Web3, guys. None of these are Web3 because the majority of all the interaction, literally, the majority of all the interaction on all of these is from a centralized provider. The blockchain is kind of like it's not even the icing on the cake. The blockchain part, right? So AWS is the foundation of the cake. File storage providers or IPFS, right? Like this, any kind of centralized database, right? That's the icing on the cake. The blockchain is like the sprinkles, right? It's the very last thing added on to all of that. But they don't really do, they're important, right? They're important, don't get me wrong. It's just that what are these blockchains actually running fully on chain that's going to be secure? You can't call it Web3. You can't, it can't host a web. It can't host anything the web hosts. ICP is the only one that can literally do that. This is the marketing that DFINITY is doing. And I'm bullish because even with no marketing, like people are saying, they have some of the most bullish partnerships I've ever seen, right? They're one of like the only 5 cryptos that have even partnered with the United Nations. They're already being uh, they're already being suggested or thought about for smart city infrastructure, right? The Ministry of Cambodia with their letter of intent. They're used as a recycling credit system for environment and waste companies, and this is just a beginning. And this is with ICP that's barely known and has a chart that looks like this. Yet they can still make marketing, they can still get adoption like that. So, and that's because of their technical capabilities, guys, right? So, if there was anything, so I have it right here, right? Rank the cryptos from top to bottom on which are most capable of offering a full Web3 experience, right? ICP by far. Like literally by far. It's in its own boat. It's literally in its own boat, man. And I know it comes off like bag bias maybe, but you can say whatever you want. This is literally the truth. There's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing I can do about it either, right? This is the product that's being built. So just a quick overview of what this means, right? A lot of AI bottlenecks today on the current web, they can actually be solved by ICP like none other can actually solve for them. Because no matter what you do with AI on any of this, it's all going to be hosted by the traditional web providers. All the data you store, how you audit it, right? If it's even auditable. So with ICP, you have much more flexibility in every single way possible. Now, crypto adoption becomes much easier with ICP. You have reverse gas fees. It's extremely user-friendly just by design with that. And like I'm saying, ICP did that first. And I think you're going to see that kind of innovation adopted even more. You have internet identity, which is also a product by DFINITY, which is kind of like a passkey, right? And I think SUI also just recently came out with something like that. It may have not been SUI, but I'll put a picture up of what did just to get it right. Which is what I mean by seamless ecosystem, right? Most dApps on ICP, guys, have internet identity. Now that's up to the developer of the dApp, but the point I'm making is Dominic Williams, DFINITY, the CEO, right? DFINITY as a organization, they're thinking about how do you make the average Joe actually use this, not just buy it, right? To not just buy it to sell it for a higher price one day, but how do we make this ecosystem where ICP is literally going to 100% be utilized and wanted because it's computation, guys. ICP has the most bullish use case by far. It directly converts into computation. And when this network is having mass amounts of computation every day, and this just gets adopted more and more because people really know, wow, this is like the HTTPS version compared to the HTTP web, right? Why wouldn't this become the biggest thing as this scales out? And it's going to be like Amazon, right? At first, people didn't know how Amazon was going to hold up when the World Wide Web was starting to get popular. There was all these companies like pets.com and all these sites that people just put money in. Everything crashed. Even stuff like Amazon crashed. But guess what? They knew they had a solid product. And this goes to a saying, and I might butcher it, but it was like, in the short term, the market is a voting machine. But in the long term, it's a weighing machine. So that means that in the short term, there's all these narratives. Anything can be sold, which is what I mean by DFINITY sucks at marketing, right? Because they don't do the marketing the same way everybody else does, which is just selling a product. Like, look, we have speed, we have security, decentralization. Everybody can say that. Everybody's even saying they're on chain, right? Because hey, you're right, 1% of it is on chain, right? The settlement layer. So DFINITY, in my opinion, is extremely smart for saying, okay, screw that marketing. We're actually gonna focus all on the actual products, and now that's why you have something like caffeine, right? Guys, this is like so far ahead. Nobody realizes it, and this is the biggest point. They're gonna be this big because they're going to adopt everybody else on them so they can really have full decentralization in a full multi-chain society. We're just going to have to see how it plays out though, right? But I think I genuinely do believe what I'm saying. So now that we went from what is possible being fully reliant on itself, I want to go to what that's like for ICP, right? So by design, you already get all of this, except for higher price is a bad thing, right? So remove this, but keep all of this, right? By design, this is already possible in ICP, everything that these have. And remove this part too, right? Because this is possible in ICP. So ICP has literally 0 dependencies required for the following, right? Currency, payments, security, proof of concept, timestamps, hosting entire front-end UIs, no need for AWS, no storage, file storage providers, no file storage protocols to host any dApps or websites. You can access apps directly with browsers connecting to ICP nodes. Storage is included within ICP's infrastructure. That's how it's built, which is, no need for IPFS, obviously. So I could have maybe removed that, but NFTs are fully on chain. They're extremely scalable. Large data is scalable. Um, ICP as an architecture has built-in scaling methods. So as time goes on, it's as far as I know right now, it seems limitless. They're just gonna have to do it in a way where it doesn't, go 0 just to 100. It's kind of like 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, right? But it can scale indefinitely from what I know. Um, Query state directly from canisters. They call to HTTP natively from canisters. You literally do not need an Oracle provider because ICP smart contracts are the only one in the entire space that directly connects to the web, that directly connects to HTTP natively. Same with bridging, right? Now I didn't add this unfortunately, but connecting to other networks, right? They all need to rely on something else to be that middleman to connect them. With ICP, for example, chain key Bitcoin, and they can do this chain key. They can build out this chain key solution for anything they want. I think currently Ethereum is in progress, right? But chain key Bitcoin, that really is a real native connection, right? It's a one of a kind technology that ICP offers. So now, do you see what I mean now by this is so seamless for the average Joe? You don't need to be technically savvy at all. And I'll use myself as an example. I'm pretty lazy. I don't really like doing all this work just to work with the blockchain. I didn't like using Ethereum. I didn't like paying gas. I didn't like the wait times. I didn't like the speed. I didn't like the whole setup. With ICP, guys, the I think the dApps are the most UI friendly I've ever seen. And the best part is the majority of it is on chain. The majority of it is on chain. And the only reason I say the majority of it is on chain is because I don't want to speak about literally 100% because there might be a dApp out there that decides by the developer, oh, I want this part off chain. So that's on them. But in terms of what's technically capable, they can put it all on chain. They can. This is what it's built for, right? So, and I'll just to be completely unbiased, right? There's going to be current bottlenecks with that, right? You can't host an entire in its state right now on ICP, right? Maybe some large game like World of Warcraft, for example, right? But like I said, we're going to just have to see how that specific use case goes on, right? How large the gaming can get. But I'll just say it like this. If there's going to be anything that can even do that, it's going to be ICP. It's not going to be anything else. Nothing else can even store a 10 megabyte photo for the average Joe, right? So if you can't even store like a picture of the beach or your family trip, you think you're going to host a game on chain, guys? It's just not, it's a lie. Like I said, they're all settlement layer. It's all the settlement layer. So real-time dApps are easily possible, right? And with real-time, I mean like real-time messaging, right? Like look at OpenChat, up and running for 2.5 years, I think, and it's practically like a decentralized Discord. These are the two main points right here at the bottom. This is significantly easier for the average Joe, which is what I'm saying, right? The whole point of this is that this is the marketing, and it's going to naturally adapt organically, and people are going to stay, which is why you have all the developers. Guys, the developer to popularity ratio for ICP is the largest. And what I mean by that is, even if ICP doesn't have the most developers statically, like as a flat number, think about the popularity of ICP compared to Solana and Ethereum, yet ICP is still like number 3 behind them. And this is with the price looking like this. Now imagine if it's just $50. Imagine if it just does a 10x, a 5x, 20, it starts going up. That's the real adoption for the majority of the space, believe it or not. Like, I'll say it like this. You could have Bitcoin go from 120K right now to like 40K, and everybody's going to be bearish on it just like that. All the doubts are going to arise now. Price is everything in this space. But I was always told the reason crypto is the price is because of its utility and its value is from its tech. So it's like if you believe that, you're literally screwed. ICP is going to take over if you actually believe that. So either you believe that or you don't. If you believe this is about the tech and it's not just about the degen culture, right, and supply and demand, and it's actually about the tech, ICP is going to destroy everything in terms of making it look bad, right? And I believe, and that doesn't mean these use cases get stolen, right? Like institutions, actual software teams, right? Engineering teams, large companies and institutions that are serious players will still use this because they know it's about tech. They care about tech. But I'm saying for the average Joe, the majority of all the investments, the retail, right? This whole crypto casino, all of it falls apart if the average Joe isn't even in it anymore. Now, do I believe the average Joe is going to be the one that pushes this forward? No, right? The institutions and the whales obviously matter the most. But I'm saying to really get this adopted and seen in a certain way of what is what, like reality versus fiction. If these if people really knew what these could do just on their own compared to ICP, right? You're just going to know it's different. You don't got to say it's better. You don't have to say ICP is better, but you have to admit it's different in every single way possible. And that has some value to it, in my opinion, because when that's true, you can add completely different use cases that were never even comprehensible on any of these networks. One of them being AI fully on chain. ICP is the only thing that can do that. Now you know why you have Caffeine AI. You can just talk to a dApp and it deploys directly on the chain, right? First of its kind. That's a use case no one was even talking about 2 years ago because no one knew of caffeine. And look, it just comes out of nowhere like that. And this is going to be a pattern, in my opinion. You're just going to have that constantly happen with ICP. So I just wanted to kind of do like a thought project with this picture. Now that you know what you know, what the difference is, right? And you just kind of take in the concept, like take in the mind, what's actually possible, value, technically valued wise, right? Oh, and I just want to say the best part of ICP is higher price doesn't affect storage costs. So this can become a higher price and it's not going to reflect negatively on the ecosystem. Because, for example, let's say you want to store, let's say you just want to store a family, like a little family beach trip, right? And there's a 30-second video in it, but that 30-second video is like 200 megabytes. If you wanted to store a 200 megabyte photo on Solana, right, at the current price, I'm gonna give it a cushion because I want to undervalue it, right? I want to say it's not that bad. So I'll say like for a 200 megabyte photo, maybe $1,000. Okay, and that's really downplaying it. And that's the thing. If Solana becomes a higher price and people are saying it's going to get $2,000 a coin, if that happens, well, guess what? Now you're paying $100,000. Now you're paying $10,000, right? It's just going to scale unless they fix it, right? And that can happen. I don't know what these networks have in the works in the background. So maybe they have solutions for this as time goes on, but chances are they're just going to keep using the cheap storage by AWS and other dependencies. But imagine if everything was $1 now, knowing what you know now about the differences in technical capabilities. And that's not just for ICP with what I've shown you. That's for ICP with literally everything you see on the screen right now. Literally every single thing you see on the screen right now. They're all pretty much the same. Except I'll give it to BitTensor, right? There's ones with specific use cases like BitTensor, which is just like AI training on chain, right? Like an AI ecosystem on chain. But the AI itself, right? The actual computation of AI, none of it's on chain. It's kind of just like what the AI's data, like what the AI learned is put on chain, right? But any of computation, any DApp, any UI, not on chain. They're not built for this stuff. And people get pissed off with that because they think I'm saying, okay, it's on chain, it's automatically valuable. That's not what I'm saying, right? It's like I said, when you can put everything on chain though, you're gonna open up different use cases that people can't even comprehend yet. And I think that's just going to become more and more apparent over time, which is why I think DFINITY's marketing is amazing because they're built for the future, like by a landslide. It's like everybody's building sandcastles right now, and internet computers building a cathedral. Just because you have the sandcastle built quickly and it looks all pretty, like, wow, that's amazing. Like DFINITY is taking a long time, but they're doing it right. It's going to be beautiful. And this is what I mean, right? It's a third generation blockchain. You have the real concept, right? Like, okay, we can use this blockchain. We can combine because proof of work has already existed, right, for email spam. But Satoshi was the first one that actually took these technologies and made its own ecosystem. This is the game changer. Then Ethereum came out and said, okay, well, why just be a currency? Why not decentralize compute, right? Why not try to decentralize like actual code, right? So that's what they try to do. And this is why it says powering the DeFi, right? Now it's decentralized finance with all these dApps, right? So they kind of added the smart contract concept. But then DFINITY said, well, okay, you can have all these smart contracts, but guess what? All of this is being run on not even on the blockchain. the important parts, like everything that's supposed to be on chain, isn't on chain. So that's why it says reimagine how you build everything, every single thing. And now look at caffeine AI. And I'm extremely bullish for caffeine AI. Dominic Williams released a phase kind of launch roadmap, and I'm gonna do that. I'm so bullish on that. I'm gonna do my own individual video on that. But I'll say this: I'm extremely interested to see what if there's gonna be a fourth invention. I'm extremely interested because I don't know how you get larger than the cloud that hosts everything. That's gonna like literally redefine software and be a solution for many of the current world problems today, like AI and cybersecurity. Like this literally sounds like it's going to be an upgraded version of the internet with much more auditability and transparency and reliance, right? You're going to actually know what's a bot and what isn't a bot. You're going to know what you're auditing. You're going to know how the AI is being trained. You're going to own your data. And like I said, guys, I think this is going to have pros and cons, but just to be transparent with everybody, unfortunately, I'm a pessimist, and I do think this is gonna be something that somehow the elite find a way to just control a lot more. But that's my own very genuine personal opinion, and I'm not reflecting that on DFINITY or anybody, or saying that's what they're doing. I just when things sound too good to be true to me, they usually are, right? I don't think crypto would have been this adopted in the way it is right now with all these institutions like BlackRock, for example, and the WEF that kind of want to show they want you in the rat race. They love money, they love power, they love imperialism, right? Growing their agendas. And I don't think they would adopt crypto if it was really going to give all these people free from their grips. I just don't see that. But, anyways, so this is app.icpswap.com, and I just wanted to talk about this real quick in terms of like the seamless environment I was talking about for the average Joe, right? Like I said, now this is very anecdotal, but and you know what? It's not like my mom is gonna be able to just like navigate this, right? But I'll say it like this. I think I can explain how to do this way easier than I would with the majority of chains and connecting wallets and setting stuff up. All you do is create an internet identity for most of these things, connect your passcode. E- Everything is much easier to send and receive on the ICP eco, especially with reverse gas fees. And the speed, the web speed, and it's only going to get better, you know? I mean, Dominic talked about Internet Identity 2.0, so we'll see what that's like, you know, for a future video, but this is game over in my opinion, man, because just look at the industrial revolutions over time, and I know I put this in a picture in one of my other videos, but when you see everything I just showed you, right, with this, zero dependencies for any of it, and what these are capable of doing without any of the dependencies, right? And you see the difference in technical capabilities. Look at this now. Smart factories, autonomous systems, IoT, and machine learning. That's for the next industrial revolution. AI, big data. That's a big part, right? Big data. You see that right there? What blockchain can store big data and actual computation in one for the AI to get that big data from? Smart factories, guys. When I think of smart factories, I think of smart cities as well, right? Like smart buildings themselves. Buildings being able to talk to each other through IoT and letting each other know when they need a product to be sent. And then an AI car sends that. Like, imagine the world being fully automated. This is what I see happening. And like I said, I think DFINITY is building for this in mind, not for the average degen, which is why you have all this recognition by serious players, especially in the governmental aspect, the actual structures of society, right? And I would even argue DFINITY it's probably more of a cybersecurity company and a cloud company than it is even for a crypto. The crypto is just how they run the life of the network. That's really the use case of ICP coin. But what's the actual architecture? Cybersecurity and cloud. A cyber secure cloud. And this is just basically this is just a program that recognizes uh, cybersecurity issues and exploits and how to deal with them, right? So all these names you have here are basically like companies that found vulnerabilities in certain flaws, and they give you advice on how to react to them, pretty much in a high level layman overview, right? And look at the names here, right? DFINITY is the only, and this was, by the way, this was from Fabio, Zero to Hero Zombie. He also has a YouTube channel known as Zero to Hero. You can look up Zero to Hero ICP. He makes great videos, but DFINITY is literally the only foundation on here that even has anything to do with a blockchain. And it makes me wonder, are they the only ones that are actually like giving advice on how to like, is it a whole different topic of vulnerability? Maybe this is like smart contract specific vulnerabilities, and none of these are even doing that because they're not doing smart contracts, right? Smart contract is a blockchain thing. So that just made me think, like, I wonder if DFINITY, um, I wonder if that has to do with any of that. But that was just interesting to me. And of course, you have what I was talking about earlier, right? Cambodia adopts DFINITY Smart City blockchain. Now, this headline's kind of misleading because it was a letter of intent. But basically, what they're gonna do is, I see this as kind of like a suggestion, right? Like you know what? You got our approval. We're gonna focus on you, DFINITY, for the future of our city and see how you can help us with our smart city, right? They're a genuine they're a genuine option that they're considering. And this is in 2024, as you can see. ICP's only been out for 3 years. They're already getting stuff like that done, right? And here you have also only 3 years in from the network being launched. The United Nations partner with DFINITY, the development program, right? To enhance financial inclusion of MSMEs. MSMEs are practically like smaller to medium-sized enterprises and companies, right? Because DFINITY has utility to enhance them. You also have the ICP Hubs network. Does this marketing suck? Maybe this is the reason why, even though DFINITY is extremely unknown and undervalued at $5, and the price went from 400 to $5, it looks like a shitcoin. But meanwhile, you still have some of the largest developers ecosystem by count. And you look at the GitHub data, ICP is always number one, rarely number two, and GitHub commits. So I think their marketing is amazing. I think they know exactly what they're doing. I think they know what matters. And this is what I was talking about with the environment waste program, right? At COP 28, by the way, which is another large, serious, professional kind of meeting like Davos, right? How are they marketing here? Why would they accept this shitcoin? And this is the best marketing of all. Just look at the cybersecurity. And this is just for actual cyber crime, right? This is when the criminal actually steals it somehow. But just imagine what you need to defend that, right? Imagine all the infrastructure you have to buy to defend against cybersecurity, and you have to update that yearly, and you have to hire teams, and you have to have all this mental energy used on what's our stack going to look like. All of it removed. So I think this is just going to be clearer as time goes on. And that's my thoughts on it, guys. That's my thoughts on the marketing, right? I don't think it's going to matter. I think this is inevitable. I genuinely believe that. So when I see that, this is a gift. This is a gift. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity, in my opinion. And you either see it or you don't, unfortunately. But I think as time goes on and things scale out, right, you actually start having AI more, all these cryptos start realizing, oh, wait, we can't store shit. It's becoming very clear what ICP is going to be able to do on their own and how they're going to scale compared to everybody else. And unfortunately, all these networks are going to have to realize that and be like, fuck it, let's build on ICP instead. When we're going to need ICP for certain things. We're going to need them. And that's the thing. ICP is extremely interoperable, right? It's not even an enemy, guys. It's just that when stuff relies on money and all of this and people have certain convictions on things, right? I've always been about multi-chain society. ICP thrives in a multi-chain society. That's one of its main use cases. But it's the only one, like I say here, that can actually offer a full Web3 experience. It's the only one. We need to make that clear. These coins have most, I'm not going to say most, but right, HBAR has utility, Algorand has utility, right? I think XRP is going to have utility. I think XLM is going to have utility. I think XDC is going to have utility, right? Polkadot, Quant. I don't think they're all shit coins. It's just that with what they're going to do, right? It's not going to be hosting Web3. It's not going to be offering Web3. It's a ledger. That ledger is going to have to be built onto something else or plugged into something else. But do you actually build on it? Is that actually, is the blockchain itself what you're interacting with? Like you are with ICP? 99% of the time, no. And just to finish my point, I think one of the main, like one of the only main NFT collections that are actually fully on chain on Ethereum, because it is possible, right? But I even say here, like NFTs are possible on these chains, like because this is about technical capabilities, right? They are possible on these chains, but they can't scale, right? The most you'll have is a document, which is still important, right? Like maybe like a house record, but actual pictures at scale. I'm pretty sure the only NFT collection, or one of the only ones that are fully on chain on Ethereum, is the CryptoPunks. And at the current prices, right, to put that on chain, it's over $500,000. Imagine if you're just an average Joe that wants to make an NFT collection. For the majority of NFTs you buy, for the majority of them, 99% of them though, they're not being hosted on Ethereum. They're not being hosted on Solana. They're not being hosted on Cardano. They're not being hosted on Bitcoin. But they can be hosted on ICP. And it can scale, and it's only going to scale better. And it's only going to become more obvious as time goes on. So I think the marketing is the tech. And I won't even blame you if you disagree with me. I won't blame you if you disagree with this whole video, right? Because if you're someone that believes the marketing is the reason why the price is so low, I can't do anything about that. But when I show you literally the technical capabilities of everything, and if we just like kind of wipe this flat and everything looked like it was the same value, what if you had to rank this, knowing what you know now? Like, how would you rank it? I think most people would argue ICP is easily in the top three at least. I would put it number one. I would put it number one on what actually makes the blockchain valuable. The blockchain part, not the market sentiment, not supply and demand. What actually makes the blockchain valuable and its tech. Because people say tech is what matters, right? And other people say, no, this isn't about tech. This isn't about tech. This is all about marketing and supply and demand. And they're not exactly wrong, right? That's why you have shit like this. Pepe coin, Trump coin, fart coin. But is but when you compare that to this, right? What do you think is going to really matter? And that's why I think a lot of crypto was a psyop, and they distracted you from actually investing in utility because that's what's going to run the future. And if you get the lifeblood of the future economy, right? Like, this isn't just buying stocks. This is actually buying the coin that's going to utilize that network. And I think that's going to have insane value if you get it in the correct coins with utility to run this future system. It's going to be directly integrated with crypto. And that's why I think all the institutions are adopting this because they know it's going to be the future. And ICP is building for the future. That's the marketing. So yeah, guys, those are my thoughts. And I know it was a longer video, but like I said, I was on vacation for like a week, and I know it's been a while since I made a video, so I know this one is long, but I just had to get all my thoughts out. And when I see the caffeine AI phases, I'm gonna make a couple more videos, right? But I just really wanted to go into why I think this is just because caffeine AI came out and the price is still like this. A lot of people are upset, but and then they go back to this. DFINITY just sucks at marketing caffeine and all this, man. Right? That's what they all say, and it's like I wanted to say more about the landscape, but unfortunately, guys, and I don't mean to come off condescending or like mysterious or any of that dumb shit, right? Because that's corny, it's cringy. It's like you literally either see this or you don't. I don't know what else to say. Because this is literally true. This is literally true in technical capabilities. So it's like, does the tech matter? Is that going to reflect in its value or not? And I think it is. That's my bet. I think it is going to matter. So thanks for watching, guys.